Hello, hello. I'm so happy you're here. Uh I had the weirdest dream last night, and this is true story, and I woke up and I'm still a little bit like processing it and figuring out where this came from, what it means, and how it can help those of us that have always put other people first, how it can help us free ourselves from that and free ourselves from I have my little from the obligation and the fear, right? That many times we feel when someone asks for something. And I have a poll there that I would love for you to vote on. When someone asks for something from you, what's your instinct? What's your first instinct? To say yes, figure it out later, ask questions first, say yes, and then resent it later, or say no and then feel guilty. Maybe it's none of the above, but you know, I'm thinking that one of those probably rings true. And hello to you all here, Emily, Line, Pam. Pam said previously I would have said yes, then figured it out or felt resentful. I'm growing and now almost always ask questions. That's awesome. Yeah, so welcome, welcome, welcome. So let me tell you the dream. And you know how sometimes you have a vivid dream and then you wake up and it's so vivid right away, but then it goes away and you can't remember much of it later. When I woke up this morning after having that dream, it was like in color, it was so real, and I felt like it was present me being in this dream, being a people pleaser in this dream. And so I'm going to share some of the details of the dream with you. But when I woke up, I thought, if I don't like voice memo this, what I'm feeling and what happened and what I'm thinking, I won't be able to recall the details of it later. So I have some notes on it, and I'm going to be referencing them just because I want to make sure that I tell you, like some of the details that were important about this dream. So, first, I think the dream was a result of me reading a comment on the video about that I put out about 3 weeks ago about disappointing people and how I had said no to someone, how that was one of my biggest people pleasing fears um was disappointing people, and how I had said no to a dog sitting request, and the person replied, their exact text reply was, "That's disappointing." Someone commented on that video that I read last night, not long before I went to bed, and was trying to figure out how to respond to it. And the comment was, because remember, if you saw the video, if you didn't, I put the link down in the description of this video, this live stream, so you can watch it. But remember that if you saw it, I walked you through how to or how I used to be so triggered by someone even thinking someone was disappointed in me, and how I worked my way through that over years, and then how this text of her saying that's disappointing was not nearly as triggering as what it was in the past. And so this person commented and said, it's also nice sometimes just to say yes out of charity, knowing that someone needs help, and if you say no, they're going to struggle to find another way. Being a cheerful giver is looked upon favorably by our Creator. I totally get where that person's coming from. Um, and if I hadn't grown up always putting other people first, always putting myself on the back burner, sometimes looking out for myself, right, and taking care of my own well being, I don't think that comment would have landed I think it would have landed differently for me because I do believe that we are here to help other people and serve other people, but not over and over and over again at our expense, right? So my dream was I was on in this place that was like an open air, huge place. I I think maybe it was like a cruise ship. It had these big spiral staircases, like I said, open air, all these different venues and locations where people were milling about and lots of people, and there seemed to be rooms, but kind of spacious rooms where you could go in and there might be like it felt like a big living room or a big kitchen or a small house, right? Um, and so it was this just huge place, and I got the sense that I was there to perform with a group led by a former boss that I had. I picture his face perfectly. This was a person in real life, a boss that I had 30 years ago, 35 years ago. So, not someone that I've thought of for years, but I know exactly who this person was in my dream, and it's just so weird. And he asked me, we were setting up for something. He asked me to go get him. He said a specific word, but I don't remember the word. But I knew that it was some kind of liquid medication. He wanted me to go get it from a refrigerator. And he didn't say what refrigerator. All I knew that I was looking for, or I sensed I was looking for, you know what insulin comes in, those little bottles, right? And there's a little rubber thing at the top. And this probably comes from the video because her dog in that video needed insulin injections. And so it probably came from that. So he asked me to go get this or told me to go get this. And so I, without asking any questions, without getting any specifics, I went off on a run, like a sprint, down these spiral staircases and opening refrigerator after refrigerator, shuffling through refrigerators to try and find what I thought I was looking for. I just imagined it was this little vial of liquid in a box, like a little paper box. And so like I said, I just kept searching refrigerator after refrigerator. And in my dream, it felt like hours were passing. I found one bottle in a refrigerator, but it was in a room that there was someone in there cleaning the room, so it was like it was someone's room, and I was confused, and I thought, "What if I give him the wrong bottle and it's not his right strength?" Like, I had all of these details going through my head. I remember I must have been in heels. I broke a heel on the staircase, and the frustration in me was building, like, the anxiety in me was building because I wasn't able to perform the task. I wasn't able to find what I thought I was looking for. And I, at one point, went back to him. And by this time, I was sweating profusely. I was running into the people in my group in different places, like they were performing and then breaking down and setting up again in a different place. And that's how long it felt like it kept going on. At some point, I went back to him just, exasperated, is that the right word? Exhausted, like I said, sweating, and he was noticeably not well. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, me finding this, his health is dependent on me finding this." And so I said to him, like, "Tell me what refrigerator, where?" And he said, "Oh, that one by the kitchen." Well, there were like in a cruise ship, right? There are plenty of dining rooms and all of that. So I remembered going by a kitchen I ran back down there. I found this little, like, bar, like a mini bar type fridge, and I opened it up, and there was a little vial inside of it. Someone helped me shove 2 little, like, plastic straws down through the rubber thing like he was gonna, drink this vial. Um, it was so weird. I ran back, like, totally triumphant, proud, and happy that I had saved the day, and he already, before I got there, as I was approaching, I realized that he looked healthy again, like he had his color back. He was relaxed, he wasn't anxious anymore, and I must have given him a quizzical look, and he said, "Oh, I had some stashed away in case you couldn't find it." I lost it. In my dream, like, I exploded, and I called him a really bad name and said that he was evil, and I walked away. I was so angry inside, but I'm not sure right now in looking back at it, was I angry at him? Was I angry at me for not for just jumping, right? When someone said jump. But have you done this before? Like someone asked you for something and you just maybe ask like, "How high do you want me to jump?" Right? Instead of clarifying, figuring out, do you know how to do this thing? How can you best do this thing? So I made some notes about like when I woke up and started thinking about this dream, how this relates to so much to people pleasing. And the thing about the comment that came last night or that I saw last night, charity that requires us to override our own no isn't actually charity. It's obligation, right? It's feeling obligated. And it's just doing that wearing a different mask, right? And so the people pleasing parts of this, like a people pleaser takes off running before even asking one clarifying question that would have saved me hours of pain, right? But asking feels like a burden or like an imposition or like we're admitting that we don't already know the answer. And so in the dream, I just, jumped up and ran. I'm wondering if anybody can relate to this. Have you ever had a dream so vivid that, it you wondered about it afterwards? Another thing that comes out about people pleasing in this is that this was me trying to perform, right? It was me trying to be competent versus asking for help. And the drive wasn't really to help him, in the dream. It was to be seen as resourceful or tireless or the one that, went to such depths to get this figured out, to solve it. And that is me trying to prove my worth, right? That's not an act of service. When we're doing it for something in return, that is not like the person said, that's not being a cheerful giver, right? When we're doing something in order to get something in return. Many times, also, another point about people pleasing is the other person is never as invested as what, like in my own suffering, as I was. And often the urgency that me killing myself over their problem isn't even a thing from their side. Pam says, "Yes, absolutely, and the anger that comes when you're trying so hard and someone doesn't really need you after all." Yeah, right. But who are you angry at? Like, are you angry at them, right? Or are you angry at yourself? Like, I realize in the dream, ultimately, I was angry at myself for just jumping without without clarifying anything. So again, the urgency that was there wasn't even real on their end. He had a stash the whole time in case I didn't come through. Had he just said that to begin with, right? But that's not his problem. I didn't ask. Like, how urgent is this? How soon do you need to know? How, right? And it goes back to that video that I did about me saying no to dog sitting, right? I clarified with her some things first before I gave my answer so that I knew what I was stepping into. And I think this dream just is basically the polar opposite of how I acted in that situation with the dog sitting. And I think what unnerved me a little bit about the dream was it felt so real time, like I had suddenly possibly slipped back into an old pattern without knowing it, and how easy it was to slip back into that old pattern. But that is actually the reality, right? If we don't, like I said in that video, do the reps, and a lot of people said, "Oh, I love that saying, like, do the reps," and that means, right, that you have to, if you want to get stronger biceps, right, you have to go to the gym and lift the weights or, do that at home or whatever. You can't get in your car and drive to the gym and sit in the parking lot and expect to get stronger just by sitting in your car, right? You have to do the reps. So I think the dream scared me a little bit because it's like, "Whoa, am I not doing my reps good enough or often enough?" Or, so it I don't wanna say it startled me, but when I look at it, it's like, "Wow, that was me now." It wasn't me, I don't think, 30 years ago, even though he was from my past 30 years ago. So it just, like, it brought more awareness to how easy it is to slip back into old people pleasing patterns, saying yes when we really want to say no, saying yes even though we know we're going to feel bad about it tomorrow. Um, yes, angry at yourself. Okay, right. Um, oh, Emily said I get angry at myself for falling for their games. Pam said I have jumped through so many hoops to be able to babysit for my sister-in-law, for example, and then it turns out she doesn't really need me. So what have you started doing in that situation, Pam? Have you started just saying no or getting more information first before you commit? Um, Charging her, having some different boundaries around it. Maybe the dream, Lena said, maybe the dream means that you still have to think about the reps. And if you get into a too stressful situation, you might fall into old habits. And this is a way for you to know that now. Whoops. Oh, maybe you got cut off. I know sometimes on the phone, if you're on your phone, it only allows you to use some, well, I think on your computer too, you can only do uh, so many characters in the chat. So, yeah, true, right? Like I think what I thought many years ago was once I got this figured out, once I figured out how to set boundaries, once I figured out how to say no, once I figured out how to speak up more easily for myself, once I started putting myself first and thinking of my needs first and taking care of me, and that wasn't selfish to take care of me, because unless I take care of me, I am not able ever to take care of other people. But I think a few years ago, I thought once I gained that wisdom and did the reps enough times that I wouldn't have to keep focusing on it, that it wouldn't keep coming up. Super dry here and hot. It is already 101 degrees and it's not even noon yet. So I thought that once I had that wisdom, that I would that it would just be smooth sailing. That's an easy way to put it. But if we go back to the do the reps analogy, right? Once you build up your biceps or whatever, muscle group you're wanting to build or your overall conditioning, you can't go, okay, well, now I got it figured out, right? I don't have to do that anymore. We have to keep practicing. We have to keep doing the reps. We have to keep on top of it, or we're going to lose that strength. So, what else did this tell me? Mm, um, so the explosion part, right? So I suppressed in my dream. I was suppressing what I was feeling and I was just going all out to try and solve this problem. I got exhausted, like I was physically sweating, and it felt like all of that was not optional in the dream, and that someone was asking me to pay that price, right? Because he asked me to go find this thing. And without questioning it, I just went and did, right? But mm, that was all optional, right? I didn't have to pay that price. I didn't have to suppress. I didn't have to get exhausted. But since I did, right, that created an explosion. And that's what happens for people pleasers when we suppress what we're feeling, when we don't express, and we don't have to express it in a harsh or unkind way at all. I could have just said to him, no, that I'm not here for that, right? That's not why I'm here. Or asked him a question. Sure, I'll go get it for you. Tell me exactly where it's at, right? But I didn't do any of that. And then I exploded on him, right? When he told me that he had a backup just in case I didn't come through anyway. So that was basically like, well, I didn't believe you could do it, right? All my proving, and still all along, he didn't believe I could come through. Instead of me believing in myself and trusting myself and accepting myself and doing what was best for me, right? I put all of that on somebody else and then I exploded. So all of those unspoken pieces that are frustration and exhaustion and resentment, all of that compounds silently inside of us, right? Until it detonates disproportionately to the thing, right? On this small trigger, right? I called him evil and it was worse than that, but I'm not going to say that here. In my dream, that's what I said. And this explosion looked completely irrational, right? From his standpoint and from everybody else's standpoint, because I was the one that was putting all this pressure on myself, trying to perform, trying to come through. Okay, Line said, maybe the dream means that you still have to think about the reps. And if you get into a too stressful situation, you might fall into old habits. And this is a way for you to know that now you are very far into the new habits, but you have to keep, oops, my doing the reps. Yes, you said it yourself right now. Right, exactly. Um, yeah, it was probably just a great reminder. And, this video I think has, not this video, the video I'm referencing has, I don't know, close to 1,000 comments on it. And so sometimes I can get, because this is how my brain works, right? It can start ruminating on a comment like she left saying, it's also nice sometimes just to say yes out of charity, knowing that someone needs help, which I knew this person did, right? Um, Not in the dream, but in reality. And if you say no, they're going to struggle to find another way. I could read that and say, yeah, I did something wrong, right? Or I could read it and say, them, like other people's struggles, like in my dream, his struggle is not my problem, if you will, right? And the fact that in the dream, he basically set me up for failure, um, that's another people pleasing thing because we're so nice, right? We get taken advantage of and we become a target many times for people who know that they can take advantage of us. And maybe that's a control issue from their side. That's not my deal to figure out, but it's not my job to always help people figure out a solution to their problem, especially when it impacts me as it did or would have if I had said yes to that dog sitting job. So I think a lot of times these dreams come from, thoughts and things that we're processing because the subconscious never sleeps. So that's the subconscious mind trying to process something. Like Line said, it's like kind of a maybe a warning or a message, if you will. Message is probably a better word. A message that, you know, be careful, right? Because you can still easily fall back into these old ways. So the suppression, right? The explosion again looks irrational to the people outside of us, but it's hours of unspoken cost that I have held on to and then like cashed in all at once, right? I just imploded. um Another thing about this is the victim mentality of a people pleaser. After exploding, right, the people pleaser thinks, why do people treat me so badly? In my dream, it was like, why would he set me up this way? Without seeing that we set the terms ourselves by, I set the terms in my dream by never asking. I never said, which refrigerator, what does it look like? You know, I'll give it 10 minutes, whatever. Never setting limits, right? Never checking assumptions. That's just the way we were conditioned to be, to not speak up. And, in the dream, I broke a heel and I was, like I said, sweating profusely. And so literally like injured myself in service of someone else's comfort without them ever knowing that the cost I paid, which then develops more resentment, right? Because we think, oh, they should be so grateful because I did this for them. And they're not reciprocating. And then, like, the time distortion, in the dream, it seemed like this went on for so long, and I never once stopped to ask or to reassess other than at the end when I went back to him and said, "Which refrigerator?" And so I didn't ask for help along the way. I just kept going at the cost to me. Nobody else was taking that cost. So, I just wanted to share that with you because um, it felt like there was a lot that came out of that dream that relates to how those of us who are overcoming people pleasing, what can happen to us, right? The things that we can overlook and the things that just that we're, yeah, willing to overlook. Looking to see if I have any other notes. Yeah, so I think just boils down to being aware of what behaviors we have that are not serving us, that are holding us back, that are keeping us stuck, that are keeping us stuck in resentment or anger or, uh, you know, whatever feeling that is in fear, right? In obligation. Um, so that because until we have awareness around these things that are holding us back, we can't do anything about it, right? Now that I've done this live stream about this will stay more deeply ingrained in my head that I have to keep doing the reps, right? Just because I have worked on this for years and talked about it for years and helped other people with it for years doesn't mean that I am, you know, over it, that I have it all figured out, that it's never gonna be triggered again in me. I have to keep doing the reps. So, but again, awareness is the first key to that. And I put this here because I am creating this afternoon, I'm finishing this video that's going into the Inner Circle membership. So just a quick, plug for the Inner Circle membership. There's videos that are deeper dive videos in there. It's $5.99 a month. Would love to support you further in there. It's an invitation, not an obligation at all, but I just wanted to talk about it. But I figured out, and I talked about it in that video where I did the no and the disappointing the person. But I figured out this cycle that I was going through, that the requests are never going to go away, right? And maybe the obligation from someone who has always felt obligated to people, that's never going to maybe go away either. The fear, like, that's a human thing to live in fear. For me, it's, fear of disappointing someone. Maybe for you, it's fear of making them mad or upset or whatever. Those probably aren't going to go away, but it's what we do with it after, right? It's what this next step is. Do we do the automatic reflex that we're used to doing, which goes that direction then, or do we do the new practice, doing the reps, right? Pam said, I think it has something to do with worth. For example, I was taught, oh, were you the one that, so you sent me down a rabbit hole because I had never heard this joy thing. Well, I'd heard the joy, but I'd never heard it put to the song of Jingle Bells. And so I had to go look it up. And Yeah, like, it absolutely has to do with worth, but also, like, what you were conditioned to believe. Pam said, "I internalized that the inconvenience or struggles of others are far more important than my struggles." Right, exactly. Um, and that is basically the premise, right, of people pleasing, is that other people, their needs, their wants, their opinions, their thoughts, whatever, are more important than mine, right? And that is just the way we were conditioned to believe from a young age, especially if you're, in my age bracket. I think it's becoming less common now with the younger generations, thankfully. Um, but yeah, the joy thing was something that was taught in Sunday school, right? Or in church. Um, and so it's an indoctrination of a belief that, your religion, um, wanted you to employ, right? And we're taught a lot of times, don't be selfish, right? To be selfish is to not be, maybe even loved by God, right? If you're a selfish person. And so there's a lot of things that we were taught that uh, aren't helpful to us. Pam said, "Because my worth is always less. In fact, as a kid, I told my mom proudly that I was meant to be a ladder. Oh, wow, for others to climb up." Interesting. What was her response to that, Pam? Do you remember how she responded to that? Um, yeah, I actually had a client tell me she first said that she learned God, other, self. And I saw it as like, you know, let's see, for you it'd be God, others, self as a linear thing. And then she said it again, and I realized she was saying God, others, self, right? And that the self is always the low man on the totem pole. And so no matter what, if you have to be the bottom, how do you ever do something for yourself? Because there are always going to be people in our life that, have problems or issues or need our help or whatever. But if we can't ever think of ourselves first, then how do we develop the self, right? How do we develop the authentic self? And then she said later in another session, she said that she remembered the whole joy thing, Jesus other self. And like the tune is like um Jesus first, self last, and others in between. Um and I can't remember now. I'd have to look it up again, but uh yeah, we were conditioned to believe a lot of things. Again, I'm 63, so, I'm a boomer, but I think Gen Xers, a lot of them were taught this as well, that other people always come first, and if you don't put them first, you're being selfish, and, you're not being godly, and you won't, like this person said in the comment, you won't be looked upon favorably by our creator, and I just I don't believe that we were put here to be because think about it, to diminish ourselves. If we all did that, who then everybody's just caretaking for everybody else. But maybe your needs aren't completely getting met in the way that you need them to because only you know what's best for you and what you truly need. So, yeah, we could go down a whole different rabbit hole there. But I hope you enjoyed my little dream story. Again, so this video with the request obligation and then the two loops and how to get on the reps loop And what that ends up resulting in, that will be put in the Inner Circle membership. You can get more information about the membership by clicking on the join button. It won't automatically join you. You can decide from there. Pam said, no, I don't know if that was me because I have never heard. Oh, yeah. Look it up. I think it's Jingle Bells. um, but somebody said that in a comment. In fact, a couple people said it, and I was like, what? Uh, that was eye-opening for me. So the Inner Circle membership is there for your, taking. It's a way for you to get support, more deeper dive video support. There's already videos in there. And it's a way for you, at $6 a month, to support my channel and me keep doing this work, or me continuing to do this work. Not that I'm going to stop. And it's not an obligation at all. It's just an invitation. If you would like that, you can join for a month, or stay as long as you want. It's all up to you. And then I go live every Wednesday at 2:22 p.m. Eastern time. I would love to see you back here in the chat next week. And if you want me to, if there's a video, I'm working on one that someone requested about drinking alcohol and why we do it, when we're happy, when we're sad, you know, whatever, right? So I'm working on that video. So if you have a particular video topic that you would like me to look at, please let me know, like in the comment of a video, or come back here and put it in the chat of a live stream. So I hope to see you next Wednesday. Pam said, no, I don't honestly remember, but I wanted her to be proud of me. She modeled this people-pleasing behavior to me. Yeah, absolutely. And so did my mom to me. Yeah, absolutely. Not Probably not so much in the way that I got into. I became like the ultimate people pleaser, making everybody else happy, and just going with the flow and making sure that everybody else was good, not worrying about me, because that would be selfish, or, boastful, or, um, yeah, too big for our britches, whatever. So, all right. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you next Wednesday, and have a great week. And until then, take care.